getting you ready for a certain site to make money.
Yeah.
I posted it and we made $10.
No.
$10.
My God.
Are you getting aroused?
Please don't.
Yeah, I love material. Tara said there's a lot of money. We are struggling with the money. Should we do that too?
Good idea. We can get out of your parents' house.
But I can't post anything on social
Come on, get on the bed. Let's start posting pictures. Tom Hanks, young Tom Hanks.
You mean like Forrest Gump Tom Hanks, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
that's why you want to watch that movie again.
Jenny telling Sumit they made $10 should have been just a weird little joke, the kind of ridiculous resort moment people laugh at and move past. But the second money entered that conversation, it stopped feeling random and started feeling like a window into something much bigger. Because this was not just Jenny being playful, and it was not just Sumit being embarrassed on camera. It was a couple taking one of the most private parts of their marriage and casually tying it to money, pressure, and survival, which is exactly why the scene lands so strangely. At first, it looks harmless, almost silly, with Jenny pushing the idea like she is just having fun and Sumit reacting like a man who did not sign up to become the product. But underneath that awkward comedy is a marriage that has already been carrying financial stress for a long time. This is the part that makes the moment more uncomfortable than it first appears, because Jenny and Sumit are not joking in a vacuum. They are joking after failed plans, after the cafe dream did not give them the independence they wanted, and after money became one of those issues that keeps coming back no matter how many times a couple tries to laugh it away. And then there is the bigger issue sitting behind everything, the $50,000 Sumit reportedly invested from their joint money without Jenny knowing, which changes how this little $10 joke feels. Because now it is not just about whether a funny photo could make quick cash. It is about whether Jenny still feels safe with the way Sumit handles their future. That is why Jenny taking control of the moment matters so much. Because for once, Sumit is not the younger husband holding the easy power in the room. He is the one being positioned, directed, teased, and watched, while Jenny becomes the person controlling the joke, the camera, and the reveal. She is laughing, but she is also testing something, because humor can be a very easy way to ask a hard question without admitting you are asking it, and Jenny's question seems simple on the surface. Can they still laugh together when the subject is money? But the deeper question is much heavier. Can Jenny still trust Sumit when their money, their living situation, and their future have already become emotional pressure points? Sumit's reaction is also important because he does not seem fully comfortable, but he also does not completely pull away. And that tiny space between embarrassment and participation is where their whole dynamic sits in this scene. They still have chemistry, they still have playfulness, and they still know how to make each other laugh. But the problem is that chemistry can sometimes hide what trust has not repaired. Then Jenny says they made $10, and for a second, the joke becomes believable enough to expose the real tension, because $10 is nothing compared to the financial pressure around them, but their reaction shows that even a small amount of money has emotional weight when a couple feels stuck. And when Jenny finally reveals that nothing was actually posted, the joke technically ends, but the exposure does not end at all, because what Jenny really revealed was not a photo, and it was not a business idea. She revealed that money is now close enough to their private life that even their jokes are starting to sound like warning signs. And once that door opens, the next room they walk into makes everything even harder to laugh off. The weirdest part of Jenny and Sumit's $10 joke is not that it happened. It is that Sumit's biggest reaction was not really about the photo idea itself, but about how old he thought he looked in the picture, and that one detail quietly changes the whole scene. Because up to that point, it is easy to watch them and think this is just Jenny and Sumit being Jenny and Sumit, awkward, playful, slightly inappropriate, and somehow still comfortable enough with each other to turn a serious money problem into a strange private joke. But then Sumit looks at the photo and worries about looking old, and suddenly the scene stops being only about money, because now it is about identity, insecurity, and the part of their marriage that has always been impossible for people to ignore. Jenny is the older wife, Sumit is the younger husband, and for years, that age gap has been one of the biggest talking points around their relationship. But in this moment, Jenny is not the one shrinking, hiding, or questioning how she looks. Jenny is the one holding the camera, pushing the joke forward, controlling the energy in the room, and acting like she knows exactly what she is doing, while Sumit is the one suddenly worried about how he appears. That reversal matters because it shows how complicated their dynamic really is, and it also shows why their relationship cannot be judged only by the obvious age gap conversation people keep having from the outside. The expected version of this scene would be Jenny feeling insecure and Sumit reassuring her, but what actually happens is stranger, because Jenny looks confident, Sumit looks exposed, and the younger partner is the one reacting like the mirror just told him something he did not want to hear. And that is where the joke starts looking less like a joke and more like a marriage X-ray. Because when couples are under pressure, the things they laugh about often point directly to the things they do not want to say out loud. For Jenny, the joke may be a way to turn financial stress into something she can control for a minute, especially after the failed café, the cramped living situation, and the bigger trust issues that have followed them into the resort. For Sumit, the joke may be funny until it makes him feel watched, judged, or less in control, and that is when his reaction gives the audience something more revealing than the actual photo ever could. This is why their chemistry is so tricky to read, because yes, they still laugh together, and yes, they still have a playful rhythm that a lot of broken couples do not have. But sometimes chemistry does not mean the problems are gone. Sometimes chemistry is the thing that helps a couple avoid the full weight of the problem, because if they can laugh, flirt, tease, and move on quickly, they do not have to sit too long with the harder questions underneath it. Did Jenny's confidence come from feeling secure, or did it come from being tired of feeling financially stuck? Did Sumit's embarrassment come from modesty, or from realizing that he was no longer controlling how he was being seen? And if they can turn money stress into a joke this easily, does that mean they are resilient? Or does it mean they have learned how to dance around pain without actually facing it? That is what makes this scene more layered than it first looks, because the bedroom joke gives them privacy, control, and a way to laugh before the conversation gets too heavy. But once they leave that room, the control starts slipping away because the next stage is not private, and the questions coming for them are not about a photo anymore. They are about attraction, intimacy, memory, embarrassment, and the kind of truth that becomes much harder to manage when other couples are sitting there watching every reaction. The moment Jenny and Sumit walk into that group therapy room, the whole energy changes, because what was private, playful, and controlled in their bedroom suddenly becomes something other people are allowed to watch, question, and react to. That is what makes this scene feel so uncomfortable, because Jenny and Sumit are not just sitting there as a married couple with a few awkward answers. They are sitting there as two people whose age gap, intimacy, money stress, and long history have already been judged by almost everyone around them. At first, the whole thing still carries a little bit of comedy, because Jenny looks like she cannot believe this is where her life has ended up, and Sumit looks like he would rather disappear into the furniture than answer these questions in front of the group. But the strange part is that neither of them fully shuts down. Jenny is uncomfortable, but she still participates, and Sumit is embarrassed, but he still gives answers, which says something important about the relationship, because a couple with no connection would probably become cold, defensive, or completely silent in a room like that. Jenny and Sumit do not look smooth, but they do look connected, and that is why this scene is so difficult to read. Some viewers will watch it and think this proves they are healthier than people expected, because even when the topic gets personal, they can still laugh, speak, react, and stay beside each other without turning the moment into a fight. Other viewers will see the same scene and think the opposite, because every laugh starts to look like a shield, every awkward joke starts to look like a way out, and every embarrassed reaction starts to raise the same question again. Are they actually dealing with the deeper problems in their marriage, or have they just become very good at making uncomfortable things look cute? That question becomes even sharper when the therapist asks about attraction and old crushes, because now the conversation is no longer about a silly photo, and it is no longer about whether Jenny pretended they made $10. Now the room is asking them to explain desire, memory, and attraction in front of other couples, and that is where the public pressure starts to show. Jenny's answer creates one kind of awkwardness, but Sumit's answer opens a different door completely because when he talks about being attracted to an older actress, the moment stops feeling random. Suddenly, the age gap conversation around Jenny and Sumit is not just something fans debate from the outside, it becomes part of Sumit's own pattern, and even he seems to register that this may have been there long before Jenny became his wife. That should be reassuring for Jenny in one sense, because it suggests Sumit's attraction to her is not forced, temporary, or based only on the excitement of doing something forbidden. But it is also uncomfortable, because the reassurance happens in front of everyone. And when private reassurance becomes public entertainment, it does not always feel safe. That is where the room starts to split. Some people may see Sumit's answer as sweet because it makes Jenny look desired and chosen, not tolerated. Some may find it strange because the way he explains it makes the pattern feel almost too obvious. And some may focus on the bigger contradiction because if Jenny and Sumit still have this much chemistry, this much comfort, and this much awkward honesty, then why are they still sitting at the last resort trying to repair a marriage under pressure? That is the real tension of this scene. Their intimacy may not be dead, and their attraction may not be the problem, but that does not fix trust, money, family pressure, or the emotional weight of living in a situation that has already pushed Jenny to a breaking point. So when Sumit gives an answer that should make Jenny feel more secure, the moment does not stay simple, because the room reacts, the cast starts reading him, and suddenly the couple's private life is no longer something they control. It becomes something everyone else gets to interpret. What should have been the most reassuring answer in the room somehow becomes the moment where everything gets even more uncomfortable, because Sumit does not sound like a man who is forcing attraction toward Jenny, but the second other people start reacting to him, that reassurance turns into something the whole group begins to judge. That is the strange contradiction sitting inside this scene, because on one level, Jenny gets exactly the kind of validation many people probably assume she needs in an age gap marriage. Sumit is not sitting there acting distant, cold, or ashamed of being attracted to his wife. If anything, his answer points in the opposite direction, because his attraction to older women does not sound like a random detail that started with Jenny. It sounds like a pattern that existed long before this marriage became part of a television storyline. For Jenny, that could feel comforting because it suggests she is not simply being tolerated by a younger husband who eventually realized the age gap was too much. It suggests she is genuinely desired. And for a woman who has spent years having people question whether this relationship could ever be normal, that matters more than the room may understand. But the problem is that the same answer also puts Sumit under a different kind of spotlight. Now the group is not just hearing him explain his attraction. They are studying him. They are watching his face, his body language, his timing, his awkward reactions, and the whole atmosphere starts shifting from therapy into public interpretation, which is exactly where the scene becomes harder to control. Earlier, Jenny controlled the joke. She controlled the camera, the photos, the teasing, and even the fake reveal about making $10. But now, inside this group setting, Jenny and Sumit are no longer controlling how their private life is being framed. The room is doing that for them. One reaction makes Jenny sound cute and lovable, like Sumit found someone who fits exactly what he likes. But another reaction makes Sumit's energy feel harder for people to process. And that is where the mood starts becoming less playful and more exposed. Because once the cast starts laughing, questioning, or side-eyeing him, the issue is no longer only whether Sumit is attracted to Jenny. The issue becomes whether his openness makes people more comfortable with their marriage or even more uncomfortable watching it. And that is a brutal place for a couple to be because the very thing that should protect Jenny's confidence also risks turning both of them into the most awkward conversation in the room. The moment gets even sharper when Sumit's visible excitement becomes part of the discussion, because now nobody can pretend this is just a calm therapy exercise anymore. It becomes one of those scenes where everyone is trying to laugh, but the laughter does not fully remove the discomfort. Jenny may hear proof that Sumit still wants her, but she also has to sit there while everyone else reacts to that proof like it is strange, funny, or too much information. That is where the emotional pressure changes again. Because attraction may be alive between them, but attraction does not pay back money, rebuild trust, fix the failed café, or make family pressure disappear. It only answers one question, and maybe not even the biggest one. So by the time this therapy scene reaches its most awkward point, the shock is not really that the room becomes uncomfortable. The shock is that Jenny and Sumit may have just proven their intimate connection is not the broken part of the marriage. The real fracture may be somewhere else entirely. By the end of this whole awkward therapy moment, the clearest thing about Jenny and Sumit is not that their marriage is cold, empty, or dying, because that is not what this episode shows at all. If anything, the strange part is that they still seem connected. They still laugh together. They still react to each other. They still have that odd little rhythm that only comes from years of history. And even when the room gets uncomfortable, they do not look like two people who have completely checked out of the relationship. That is what makes their situation more complicated. Because if Jenny and Sumit looked miserable, distant, and emotionally finished, the answer would be easy. But they do not. They look messy, embarrassed, playful, stressed, and still drawn to each other, which means the problem is not that the spark is gone. The problem is that the spark may be helping them avoid the parts of the marriage that still need real repair. Jenny's $10 joke was never really about becoming some overnight business success, and it was never really about whether the photo was posted, because once she admits nothing actually went online, the fake business idea disappears. But the stress behind it does not disappear. The money pressure is still there, the failed cafe is still part of the background, the living situation has still added strain, and the trust questions around financial decisions do not magically vanish just because Jenny and Sumit can make a room laugh. That is the hard truth of their storyline. A couple can still have chemistry and still have unresolved damage. A couple can still be attracted to each other and still be carrying resentment. A couple can still joke, tease, and flirt while avoiding the exact conversation that decides whether the marriage becomes stronger or keeps circling the same problem. And that is why this episode works better than it first appears, because it does not show Jenny and Sumit as a simple disaster, and it does not show them as a couple who has everything figured out either. It shows them stuck in the middle. Sumit's answer about older women gives Jenny a kind of emotional reassurance because it strongly suggests that his attraction to her is real and not something he is forcing for the cameras. But that reassurance only solves one piece of the puzzle. It does not explain how they rebuild trust after money decisions damage the foundation. It does not explain how Jenny stops feeling boxed in by family pressure. It does not explain how Sumit proves that charm and awkward humor will not replace accountability. And it does not explain whether therapy will push them into honest conversations or simply give them another room where they can turn pain into a joke. That is the difference between intimacy and stability. Intimacy can keep two people close for one night, one scene, one strange conversation, or one uncomfortable laugh. But stability is what holds the relationship when the bills, family tensions, old resentment, and future plans come back. Jenny and Sumit may still want each other, and that matters. Their connection is not fake, and their affection is not invisible. But wanting each other is not the same as repairing what has already been damaged, and that is the emotional truth sitting underneath every strange moment in this episode. Their marriage does not look dead, it looks unfinished, and sometimes that is much more complicated